And the state school superintendent race still too close to call. Sherry Ibarra right now out in front, barely over Cindy Wilson. If you caught any of our election coverage last night, it was a wild night. We got done about 11:30, and we are back and Adam with the results of the entire country. Our great friend Cassie Smedley joining us from the RNC. And I always say Cassie, but it's Casey. Casey, thank you for joining us.
No, you were right. It's Cassie. We've got a lot of names floating around.
Well,
but, hey, how are you?
How are we after last night's midterms?
We are good. We've got historic gains in the Senate. That's only the fifth time in history that the party that controls the White House and has the majority in the Senate adds seats. So not only did we add seats, but we feel really good about those seats added. Got a lot of great new freshmen coming, and we still are crossing our fingers out in Montana and Arizona. Very close races going on out there. And in the House, we are in a better position than I think anybody thought. That blue wave was a big sable. We, of course, would have loved to have kept the House, but we kept the Democrats to a very slim majority. That's bad news for Nancy Pelosi or whoever they might give the speaker's gavel to. They're going to have to work with Republicans if they want to get anything done. And more than that I can't underscore enough the majority in the Senate, expansion of the majority in the Senate. So often things get passed in the House and they go to the Senate to die because up until now there was just a slim majority and we didn't have any Democrats to work with. Now having 4, maybe 5 pickups there, that's something we can work with, and that's more of President Trump's agenda that can get accomplished. That's more good judges that can get confirmed. So there's good opportunity there.
When we take a look at Florida and Georgia, the Florida-Georgia line, what could have been and what wasn't.
You're right. I love that shout out for my favorite country band, Florida Georgia Line. But yes, I think that here's the difference. There are Democrats today taking these moral victory laps. Oh, we kept it close. This is closer than it ever should have been. Well, I disagree in the sense that the national narrative is what made this race close. Millions of dollars going into these races. I think of this too out in Texas with Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz. But on the ground level, the conversation was very different. And at the end of the day, voters went and voted for the person that more closely represents their state, not the national narrative, not the person that's the future of the Democrat Party, but rather the person that's going to fight for the future of Georgians, Floridians, Texans. So I do think that is a lesson that the Democrats should learn, but that we can all take note of is, and I think Republicans generally are better at this anyway, but that don't go nationalizing these races because that hurts your people on the ground. All politics is local.
You go back to Georgia, though. The cover of Time magazine, Stacey Abrahamson was on that, the cover of Time magazine, Oprah, and yet the people of Georgia weren't fooled by her. And she had a very accomplished young lady, but on the other hand, she had some images from the past that came back to haunt her. And it's funny, whether it's Claire McCaskill or other Democratic candidates, they seem to hide their liberalness, trying to, stealthily get in.
I think that's right. I was actually talking with a couple of friends from Georgia a few weeks ago who are Republicans, but they said, well, she may not be so bad. And then she started showing up with her liberal friends. And then they you're right, they saw her for what she is. And at the end of the day, Georgia's still a red state. Those races are not won in Atlanta. There's a whole swath of state, in particular South Georgia and up in the mountains, that doesn't want somebody who aligns so closely with the tried and true left. And I think that ended up being a problem for her. I actually, this is hypothetical speculation, but wonder what would have happened if you sort of left the race to itself and left Georgians to have the conversations among themselves. It was a close race. Would it have been even closer? Because you mentioned Missouri, my home state, yeah, it was on the national radar because it was a great pickup opportunity. But by and large, that was a state for Missourians to figure out. And that was the opposite direction. You saw that Missouri really is this red state right now, this Trump country state. I think it was not as close as many wanted it to be. That was a very clear victory for Josh Hawley. So kind of giving you mixed messages there. But I think that, again, all politics is local, and you should take a a cue from this. Anybody in the Democrat Party who wants to try and bring in Hollywood yet again for these folks, don't do it. Stay away.
Well, besides the cackling going on Morning Joe, as we've talked about, this is a great night for the Republicans. The concern, though, is, the House and the usual suspects are back and vowing they're going to be good little Democrats. But, we've seen this movie before.
Well, that's right. Two thoughts here. So there's going to be 11 new Democrat congressmen who promised that they wouldn't vote for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker. There were 47 total Democrat candidates this cycle who made that same promise. So these folks aren't going in to Congress saying, I'm going to join you in your impeachment fight. Actually, they campaign much more moderately, much more, I'm going to be there to get things done. And so we're going to be keeping an eye on those folks. It's never good for a freshman member of Congress's first votes to be a broken promise. But also, if the Democrats muddy up the process and bring progress in the House to a stall because of baseless impeachment investigations, that's good news for President Trump and Republicans in 2020. Because one thing we know for sure is that people want their government to work. And if Nancy Pelosi and Elijah Cummings and Adam Schiff and Maxine Waters grind progress in the House to a halt, and all of this good news that we've been experiencing is now halted in the House, it's going to be a short-lived majority for the Democrats.
What do you think of Montana, boy? And going back to your home state of Missouri, Claire McCaskill's been on the bubble the last few election cycles. This time, everybody that it seemed voted against Judge Kavanaugh got it.
Yes, that's exactly right. Even down in Florida with Rick Scott, and we hope that'll be the case with Tester out in Montana. I think that's a telltale sign, too. They didn't pay attention to what the voters said was a priority for them. We know that in 2016, people who said that their number one reason for voting in 2016 was the Supreme Court, 56% of them broke for Donald Trump. And yet, they were represented by these senators who didn't even think twice about voting against these Supreme Court nominees. They might have acted like it in the public, but we knew they didn't think twice about it. So I think that is a good lesson learned there. And also, we saw that the states that we got big pickups in the Senate, lo and behold, those were really popular states that President Trump held several rallies in. So I think that speaks volumes, too, for the Trump supporters who turned out to be GOP supporters last night. And that, again, is, we think, good news all the way around for our party and our prospects in the future.
It's strange. You've got Stacey Abrams refusing to concede, and a lot of folks that, thought they were going to be the next governor. We've got Paulette Jordan here. She really didn't run that big of a race, but they seem very angry. I mean, and then you have the Republicans that concede and, hey, it didn't work out. We worked hard. But then you've got just this anger on the lib side.
I think that's the difference between Democrats and Republicans, right? For Democrats, this is a religion. For Republicans, this is like our Super Bowl Sunday, election day. We get really excited about it. We turn out. We track it all season long. But then the next day we go back to work and we go back to our everyday lives. And it's not the center of our lives. We want good elected officials, but we understand that's how democracy works, and very rarely does one party go undefeated on election day. Very different over the Democrat Party. They still haven't gotten over 2016. We know that. And but I think it is interesting. Down in Georgia, I was again asking one of these same Georgia friends, where are the votes? Where's the holdout? Why hasn't this race been called? They said because she doesn't want to concede. It's I think a 3-point margin there. That's kind of interesting to me down there because conversely, Scott Walker was a very sad loss last night, but he looked at the math, seems to have played out, and they went ahead and called the race. That's not to say that there might not be folks taking a closer look to make sure it is what it is, but to your point, these things happen, and you've got to let the voters speak. It's not about you. It's about the voters.
Yeah, it's just funny. I don't know. She didn't move into the governor's mansion, so I don't know how she's not going to concede, but it's just very scary. What do you make of Beto there? He raised a ton of money. He was going to get Senator Cruz. That didn't happen. And you have Beto, you have Gillum, you have Abrams, all these Democrats, high profile, that raised a ton of money that failed. Are we going to see them again?
Well, I saw something last night that Beto O'Rourke spent over $22 for every vote. And the average person spends about 50 cents, I think. So that's just to tell you how much money he went after and didn't even win. But I think we're going to see Beto O'Rourke. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him on a plane to Iowa today. He seems to, despite the fact that he didn't win and wasn't right for Texas, again, folks at the national level are saying, we want to see you in the White House. So I would not be surprised if he joins the cast of several dozen who are vying for the Democrat nomination. That seems to be the stepping stone path for so many in the Democrat Party. But, hats off to Beto O'Rourke. He raised a ton of money. It just was from a lot of people who couldn't vote for him, I'm afraid.
Cassie, finally, what's next for the president?
I think the president gave us a preview of what's next out on the stump. He wants to keep this going. And now he would rather have a Republican majority to work with, but it's a slim majority. He has said himself, I can talk to Nancy Pelosi. I'll work with her or put some things together. And we've seen him invite bipartisan groups to the White House before. I think we'll continue to see that. But again, he's going to have a nice Senate cushion to get some more of his agenda passed and more of these judges through. So we've got more good news coming for the American people, I think.
Cassie, we appreciate you, and I know it was a late night for you and for a lot of true believers across the country. Thank you.
Great to be with you. Thank you for all you've done out there.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. It is 6:17, currently 30 degrees in Kuna. Your thoughts on last night's election, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. The state school superintendent race still too close to call. In Ada County, you have some Democratic women that were elected, upsetting some incumbents. We'll take your calls on that. And nationally, you've got a really good night for the Republicans with the exception of the House. As we've talked about, and by the way, it was nice to meet Steve from Meridian last night, and so many of you came out. And it's very humbling to be at the event at the Riverside. And I know Ray Amaya, he was chomping at the bit to be out there with us. But to have Tess come up and Bruce and Shay and our old friend Dennis Mansfield and others come up and talk, whether they were elected folks like our friend Russ Fulcher or others, Brad Little. It's just great to see people involved. And yesterday's Miller Minute, I talked about how Donald Trump had really reinvigorated America. And you see this midterm where left and right go at each other. We haven't seen a midterm like this, I don't know, in your lifetime or my lifetime, but people engaged. And in Idaho, it was interesting. Prop 2 passed, Prop 1 failed. A split decision when you think about it. And to me, Prop 1 failing shows me that there are still people of social conservatism here in the Gem State. And then you've got Paulette Jordan vowing she's not done. Paulette, you're done. Let it go. Move on with your life. Go make your documentaries. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And looking at Ada County, that's going to be something that we're all going to have to study, because you've got a more liberal, progressive agenda coming in. We've got to figure out how to counter that. And I love the idea of making all these partisan races. I think that would make it a lot easier. But it was such a blessing to be with you last night at the Riverside. And as I was talking to, and maybe you were listening, maybe you were like Liberty Linda and others, listening online, or my mom listening in New Hampshire on the KIDO Talk Radio app, I really admire people like Steve Ackerman that donate their time, effort, energy, and their expertise to volunteering, to going to these parades and holding up signs, to doing the policy work, debate prep for Russ Fulcher and his family. for 5 years, 6 years running. I was so happy for the people that are involved in the process. And the great lesson from the midterms, as well as the 2016 presidentials, is it's good to be involved in the process. We're still hoping Sherry Ibarra can pull it off. It was nice to speak with her last night. What a class act she is, vilified by the left, but undaunted, determined to make a difference when we're talking education with Idaho's kids. Hey, coming up this week, it is Win Kevin Miller's Cash. It's back. Your chance to win up to $5,000. That's right. All you have to do is listen to me and in the 6 o'clock hour, the 8 o'clock hour, and Sean Hannity at 3 o'clock. And we'll explain it more at KIDOTalkRadio.com. A lot going on. This is like the day after the Super Bowl. We'd love to hear from you next. 580-5436. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
Donald Trump and his followers are still intact if it stays the way that we're seeing it right now. And a big reason for that, I believe for some time, is the economy. The fact is the economy is chugging right along. We've got the greatest job creation since the 1960s. That's always an important factor when you're in a presidential election or any kind of an election year.
So we haven't seen the blue wave, and we've seen the Republicans make a strong stand to hold or increase their seats in the Senate.
I think it's early enough in the evening that we can tell that there is not a blue wave forming. There is not a blue tsunami that's going to repudiate Donald Trump across the country. In the states that Trump has campaigned in, late in the campaign, those states have delivered and performed for him. So if you're sitting at the White House right now, you know a couple of things for certain. You know that the worst case scenario has not materialized. You know that the chances are now overwhelmingly likely that there will be pickups in the United States Senate. And certainly when you look downrange at the House, though the chances are still more likely than not that there will be a Democratic majority and a Democratic speaker, the losses do not appear at this hour to be as catastrophic as they were predicted to be.
So much for the blue wave, more like a blue trickle. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Time for traffic and weather together. It is
recovered.
Let's go to the phones. David in Nampa joins us on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Hello, David.
Hey, thank you for taking my call. Silver linings, there are a couple. First, it would be nice to see who said they would vote for Nancy or wouldn't vote for Nancy Pelosi, who ends up being proven a liar and votes for her. That'll be something to see. Next, a silver lining is, do you know why the Senate went more red and the House went slightly blue? I mean, it's the full court press done by the prostitutes and everyone else and whatever. But why did the Senate go more Republican? In 2 words, Brett Kavanaugh. They saw what a horror show that was, and they said, oh, no. And by the way, 2 of the 3 women are already being prosecuted, and one of them is actually screaming, come on, it was just a tactic. What are you prosecuting me for? Which is like, saying if you played a chess game, with 4-foot squares and people for chess pieces, and Queen's Rook, a.k.a. Kevin Miller, went and, checkmated the king, and then is prosecuted for regicide. I mean, that doesn't happen. You go back to the board, you start over, a new game. They are going to have Maxine Waters, Nancy Pelosi, and all the crazies. They're going to go just nuts. And if they let, have subpoena palooza, which someone said yesterday, they're not going to find anything, and America is going to be so turned off. And the last silver lining, there are a few others, but I'll give you one more. There was a money man who said, people are doing well, they just don't feel it yet. And because the Congress isn't going to be able to do anything, that's one of the reasons Congress did great. 1, it was Republicans, and 2, Clinton was so mired down in his scandals, he couldn't do anything. So, because the best thing that the government can do is get out of America's way. People will feel the Trump economy. To the extent that they did, that's why they voted. So, those are some silver linings.
Well, like I said, they didn't get Ohio. They didn't get Florida. They didn't get Georgia, and they had all the money. They didn't get Ted Cruz. It was more like a blue trickle. And look, the House is a tough play in any election cycle, especially when you have so many retirements.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was the one thing, the retirement. We need contract 2, because what that lady said notwithstanding, do you know why the contract with America won? Because the contract with America, liberals lose nationally. You know, that's why when the contract with America, it nationalized the House. In fact, I knew the Republicans would win. And I knew they would win when I heard a certain talk show host, not named, said the Republicans, this is in May of 94. Okay, I didn't hear contract with America. I heard 10 items, didn't hear any of that. All I heard was they're going to nationalize the House. And when I heard those 3 words, I knew they were going to win. We need contract 2. You know, Grace Commission 2, you know, a bunch of other things people want, and do it. And this time have a Senate and a president who will do it. We do that, and we will win.
David, thank you for the call. Appreciate you listening every morning to KIDO Talk Radio. All right. You're welcome, Kevin. Nobody ever says that except Liberty Linda. Coming up next, Liberty Linda and more of your calls over last night's midterms. Looks good for the Republicans. Paulette Jordan vows, I don't know what she's saying. Isn't it time for Paulette to head back up north? Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
If you're just waking up, we're back. Great to be in Idaho. Great to be in Ohio, Florida, Georgia, Montana, still up for grabs. The only race that we're looking at right now is the race for state school superintendent. We'll see how that plays out between Sherry Ibarra and Cindy Wilson. But we are taking your calls. One of the great days in politics. The libs got the House. They vow this time around they're going to be good libs. And next time around, well, they're going to have investigations. But do you really believe the libs? I don't. Let's get to the phones. Liberty Linda, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller.
Good morning, Kevin. First of all, Kevin, I want to tell you that you were wonderful last night. It was so nice to tune in and hear you. That just made it great.
Well, the only thing missing was you at the Riverside there. It was a good time.
You know, my situation right now, you know, I'm not there, but my heart is there, and I will get back to Boise soon. And anyway, so that's my story. And, you know, things come up in our lives we don't know is going to happen, and that's the way it goes.
Sure.
But,
your thoughts?
Pardon me?
Your thoughts on last night?
Okay. Well, first of all, we knew Brad Little was going to win, you know. But the thing was, I didn't know. Paulette Jordan actually got more votes than I thought she would get. I was a little surprised about that. And then, of course, our beloved Russ Fulcher, I loved what he said. You know, and we're so proud to send him to Washington. You know, he serves with his heart. And anyway, so it was just wonderful to tune in to Riverside. I've been there so many times, and I felt like I was right there, right next to you. And but anyway, yeah, I was a little surprised that Paulette Jordan got so many votes. And pretty much everything else was, I'm very, very happy about the Senate. I'm hoping that there was votes miscounted for the House because we don't want to lose that. But what can we do about it? You know, I mean, I couldn't believe they called it for the Dems. And I don't know if you noticed that the whole West Coast went blue, and so did the whole East Coast. Both of our coasts went blue. I don't know if you noticed that last night or not.
No, I didn't. I'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah. Take a look at it because it did, except for wonderful, you know, DeSantis, he's still in. Cruz is still in. You know, overall, I think it was a very good night for us. You know, just a little bit concerned about the House. And so we have lots to celebrate about, lots. So that's my feelings about the election. And I hope that something went wrong with the House because it's still close. we still, I think if we, you know, there's some votes counted wrong or something, we could still control the House. But anyway, so I'm pleased. You know, not at the top level happy, but pleased. So, and I think that's what we need to be, is pleased.
Liberty Linda, you're in my prayers. Get well soon.
Yeah, you're always in my prayers. Love you, Kevin.
We love you.
Have a wonderful day.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Let's go to Meridian. Russell joins us now on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Good morning, Russell.
Yes, good morning, Kevin. You know, I hear a lot of optimism and silver lining and all of that, but I'm extremely disappointed, you know, from a cultural and social perspective. You know, draining the swamp, I mean, that's over, right? Because the swamp's back, and, you know, this hope that we had that, you know, this left-wing social movement that Obama wanted to transform the country with, you know, well, it seems to me that it's all back since they have the House now again, and they're going to go after our president. And so, you know, I don't mean to be negative, but historically speaking, you know, I hope that people and the listeners realize that, you know, what's happened here. And but the only silver lining I really see is the fact that God is still on the throne. And when I was out working this morning, I looked up at the stars and I realized He's still there, and that we can trust in Him. But maybe the country needs to turn more spiritually minded than politically minded at this point, because in my thoughts, in my viewpoint, the loss of the House is a turning point for the country, saying that, you know, the corruption and the darkness that we've seen in our social and cultural realm, you know, continues. So we need to turn to the living God and just trust in Him, and maybe Christians speaking up on the radio more and talking about making America healthy again, not just great in a political way. I appreciate you letting me say that.
You always have a home here, Russell. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Have a good day.
You too.
All right, Russell in Meridian talking about social conservatism and God. Here's Paulette Jordan. She's mad.
Proud. We're excited. We worked so hard, and it's just built up to this whole moment of excitement. We have people all over our state who have been a part of this campaign, and they have a piece of this campaign to take with them. So all I can tell you is just that we have done everything that we could, and when we look at it ourselves at the end of the day, we're proud to say that we have honored our ancestors. Some of the most treasured are having heard the stories of the most vulnerable of our people, being able to go inside people's homes and see how they live, and visiting our sanctuaries and some of our shelters, and getting to meet a lot of our young people, and of course even our children, seeing how many of our people live here in our state that many don't, and that's an incredible.
You know, we're still looking for her concession speech where she says this is our Idaho and everything else. One lesson that we have to learn, and this will come to fruition in the legislative session. By the way, it was wonderful to see Representative Christy Zitto last night, Representative Brent Crane last night. We had so many folks stopping by. But there's a responsibility here in Idaho. There's a blue, we could call it millennial, we could call it the folks from California coming in, but there are some libs coming in. Paulette Jordan ran one of the worst campaigns ever, yet still almost garnered 40% of the vote. Now, Brad Little worked very hard, but he took his foot off the gas a little compared to the primary. He didn't have to expend as much resources because the Democratic candidate was so weak. But even a weakened, misinformed, misguided, non-directional Democrat can get 40% of the vote in Idaho? That should be troubling to all of us, true believers. So we'll share your thoughts on that. In addition, we've got the libs in the House. The Senate's still up for grabs, but every Democrat, with the exception of Joe Manchin, that voted against Kavanaugh, they're done. Max in Garden City with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Max.
Good morning. First, my heart goes out to Russell. Russell, hang in there, buddy. There's a silver lining to this. I was talking to my friend Mark yesterday, and I think I agree with him. This is a good thing with the Democrats getting in there, because they're going to spend the next 2 years making absolute fools of themselves. They're going to go to the most ridiculous and stupid extent to push their minority agenda. And that's exciting, because I think you're going to see more and more libs jumping off the ship. The crazier the Congress gets, the more people are going to turn on them. So let them go crazy.
I don't think they can help themselves.
Oh, anything they do now is going to be self-inflicted injury. And as far as the Medicaid expansion, I'm excited about that. As a doctor, I'm not in favor of medicine for profit. I'm really not. And I think that properly handled, this can be a boon for Idaho. I really do.
Well, people are very concerned about the bait and switch, if you will.
Oh, I am too. I've got my eyes open here. They don't want to do that. Although, like you said, there are a lot of sleeper Dems in this state. There have to be.
Sleeper cells.
Yeah. They're sleeper cells. They're a virus. They're a cancer. And they're scattered all around us. For Paulette Jordan, you know, it proves one thing. It proves Dems don't vote by the issue. They are entirely character-driven. They're entirely, oh, look at the haircut. She'd be the first woman. He'd be the first black. She'd be the first whatever. They're so Guinness Book of World Records driven. I've yet to meet a Dem who can intelligently discuss any valid talking point. I've met one.
Max, we appreciate it. Thank you for the call.
All right, buddy. Thank you.
580-5436, 580-KIDO. Across the country, the Democratic blue wave didn't happen. We withstood it. The president withstood it. And in Idaho, it was business as usual. The Republicans beating down the Democrats. Got a little testy last night on the Big Fox. Remember, when you're listening to Fox News on the radio in the Treasure Valley, you're listening to 107.5 FM and 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's take a listen.
Donald Trump. Trump lost these seats. Yeah. Trump should have taken these seats. It was Trump's fault. Look, he went to all these cities and he couldn't turn out the vote. I believe if Donald Trump hadn't done that massive rally in Texas last week and hadn't been there, and Don Trump Jr., which I think nobody's talked about tonight, Donnie Trump Jr. went all over the country. And I think he had a big impact on this race as well. If the president hadn't done those rallies in some of these key areas, I don't know if Ted Cruz would have won. And the party is coming home to Trump. I mean, the party is unified. That doesn't mean they agree with everything he tweets or they like every position on immigration. I'm not saying that. But I think most in the party realize that if you're not aligned behind the basic principles of kind of this conservative populist approach of Trump, not his tone necessarily, but his policies, you're not going anywhere. And by contrast, the Democrats are going home to more of a Ocasio-Cortez party, which I think in 2020, to Carl's point, that's going to be a tough sell.
I don't think that works. I don't think that's a fair thing to say about the Democrats. I think that is a complete mischaracterization.
Okay, go ahead.
If you look at the Democrats who are winning across, Abigail Spanberger, Jennifer Wexton, look at them. I think the reason that they're winning is not because they went far left, it's because they got women who have military or intelligence credentials, and there's this caricature out there. Let's wait and see what the Democratic margin is. Let's see where they won, and let's see what their policies are. And, you know, if you're going to give the Republicans credit for holding on to the Senate, then I think you have to give the Democrats credit for actually flipping the House.
Well, all right, Dana, weigh in here.
You know, that's the thing. This is the new Fox where we're reaching out to the libs. The libs did good, of course. That's not the case on any other network. Laura Ingram's right. Democratic Party is going to continue to be radicalized. I had a gentleman as I was leaving the Riverside last night come to me and say, Kevin, as crazy as it is, it's going to get even worse. We'll talk next. I can't wait to hear what you have to say. Kevin Miller on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning. Aaron in Nampa, thanks for your patience. Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning. I think Paulette Jordan won a pretty big victory last night. I think Prop 2 is a huge expansion of democratic socialism.
Paulette Jordan won a victory. She lost. She got 38% of the vote. She's a loser.
But no, Prop 2.
You said Paulette Jordan got a big victory last night.
Yeah, Prop 2 is a humongous victory for the left.
She got 38% of the vote. She's a loser.
Prop 2 and Butch Otter won big last night. Democratic socialism won big. It's a huge. I've never seen a more successful. Over the last 100 years, liberals have just have had nonstop victories, no matter who is there, and it's just more big government. We really want to be more dependent on a federal government that is just has an out of control debt problem.
Yeah.
Not good.
I'm sorry, I have to laugh because that's all I can do with this, but your points are relevant when you're talking about Prop 2.
Prop 2 is a huge expansion of democratic socialism.
And we had, 65% of the people vote for it, something like that?
Yeah, basically a bunch of liberals coupled with sleeper cell Republicans, kind of like what previous caller was talking about.
Well, the big question is, our friend Tea Party Bob says that will bankrupt the state. We'll see how it plays out, but
I just don't. I think the proper role of government, and this is something that Butch Otter has obviously forgotten about and rejected, but the proper role of government is to protect life, liberty, and property. It's not to help people out with, various maladies. These are why we have churches and private charities, not unconstitutional programs that are just leading us to have more and more debt. It's just a big mistake. And I'm glad that Paulette Jordan lost. I certainly didn't vote for her, but big expansion of government happened last night.
Well, my mistake. Your point is very relevant, sir.
All right. Well, hey, thank you much. Take care.
Thank you. Traffic and weather together. KIDO Talk Radio. Let's get
7 Eric Gebert.
And I'm Kevin Miller. Coming up, Holly from Caldwell, Mark in Eagle, and yes, our old friend, old reliable, that rascally rabbit, Liberal Steve. We will take your calls all morning long at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Georgia, it looks like it's over. Florida, it's over. Ohio, it's over. The Montana Senate race continues to percolate. And why is that important? You have Senator Jon Tester, and you might know our friend Dave Tester. That's his uncle, Claudia, and Carson and Claire, the Tester family here, well known in the media circles. Jon Tester, Dave's uncle, in the fight of his life in Montana. President Trump didn't like how he treated some folks in his administration, so he vowed to get rid of Tester. That race is still too close to call, but if Jon Tester goes down, every red state Democrat that was up for re-elect, with the exception of Joe Manchin, well, Joe Manchin didn't vote against Brett Kavanaugh, that voted against Kavanaugh will go down. Fox News next on your home for Fox News on the radio, KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller, good morning, everyone.